When it comes to the different parts of the forest, I go through periods in which I gravitate to a particular part of the land. I'll still visit most places as often as I can, but when I glimpse something about a space, or feel something somewhere, for one reason or another, something will keep bringing me back. Last year, it was the center of the forest garden. I'd lived for weeks looking forward to that golden hour when the forest kind of sparkles, and just stroll around simply looking at plants, appreciating the biodiversity, the individual beauty of each plant, and how they all kind of play together to make this really enticing, touching space that's larger than the sum of their parts. This year, though, I'm not quite sure why, but when I go out for those same walks at the end of the day, my legs keep bringing me back to a new place where I've never really spent time before. And when I try to break down why I love it there so much, I can't really find any simple reason. Maybe it's the wildness, the mix of trees, hedges, and wild natives all kind of overlapping. Maybe it's the novelty, since it's a space that didn't really exist last year. I mean, it existed, but it was completely overgrown with brambles 2 meters tall, so it was completely inaccessible. So when we did finally open up the space after not seeing it for a few years, it was a surprise to see it so suddenly mature. Maybe it's how isolated it is. It might be the spot on the land farthest away from all other people, which I'm probably drawn to these days. Or maybe it's the clearing, something we don't have much of in our forest, a big open space where you have the freedom to move around and still have nature in every direction. Or maybe it's my friend Chestnut, who I grab onto every time I take the final step on the little log playground I made and almost lose my balance. I don't even think about it, I just kind of grab him and he's always there, and I'm really grateful to him. What's most interesting to me now, though, I think, is that it's a space that has so much going for it that we never intended. In fact, if it looked like what we originally designed it to be, it would just be a few rows of oaks with some alleys for planting potatoes or veggies or any other cash crop, which would be a fine space, but it would have missed out on so much magic, which comes a bit from the charm of the randomness nature brings interacting with the order we tried bringing. Luckily, though, as people, my brother and I are broken enough that we couldn't actually follow through on all the ideas we've had. And while we were distracted with 100 other projects or frozen by our incapacities, the space kept growing and developing, and it became something we couldn't have anticipated. This glorious mix-match of life that really plays to my desire for exploration and discovery. Because it really does feel like I discovered this place. When I cut the brambles back, strangely, the space felt like it was always here waiting for whoever would think to look, and I happened to be that person, which is amazing to me because after 10 years, in a 2-hectare space, it still feels like I'm discovering it, like there's new places emerging ready to be discovered, new things we didn't expect when we set the forest in motion, and this little portion of the forest happens to be my favorite discovery to date. A new discovery that I was somehow able to improve, at least in my own eyes, first by caring for the space all these years, and second by bringing in the log playground, which was a gift to myself that helped me work my way out of a depression. Because every now and again, I spiral into a place where I can feel like I'm not capable or worthy of anything good in this world. This time I was feeling unsupported, and through that lack of support, completely disconnected from the world, from the people in my life, and from myself. And for me, there's a medicine in giving myself gifts around the forest. And this time around, it was something that reminded me that I'm capable of things and that those things don't have to be big or perfect. They can be small and silly and have no purpose other than to give myself something that I want. And in that way, I reaffirmed that I can do something for myself, that I can make mistakes and the things that I make are imperfect or not as great as I'd like them to be, but in the end, they and I are enough. It's not something I can really explain, but there was support in that. There was something about being in nature, burying the logs and making a place where I can dart among the treetops just for me that taught me something and helped me move on. And now sometimes when I look at the logs, I can remember that I can care for myself. I'm at least capable of it, even though I don't always do it, and having that there makes the space richer for me. Strangely though, I don't think I would have noticed this space in the same way without the logs. It was in setting them up that helped me realize how much I liked being here and led to the decision to convert this small bit of forest into a grassy patch where I could just sit and enjoy the space. It's the only reason I started lingering and began to really look at the composition of the space, which is something I'd seen 100 times before but never really appreciated. That the eventual canopy of oaks with a low tannin acorn, by the way, that you can eat without having to process, the mulberries we planted a few years after the oaks, the chestnuts and willows that simply planted themselves, and this really cozy hedge of blackberry that completely wraps around the entire space, all work together to really kind of hold you. And it's such a luxury to be here, to have a place so soothing to my nervous system that after the stresses of a day I can sit and listen to the birds and come out feeling fuller and calmer than when I sat down. And I think if you take all of that, everything I've just said, and you squish it all together, you get a sense of why I love it here, right now. It's a space that plays to my particular sense of beauty. It's a space in which everything and everyone all seem to collaborate, where layers of meaning and strata tell me that I am capable, and that lets me feel like I'm intimately connected to nature, all while giving me all the space I need for whatever.